Hello and welcome to Bangalore International Centre's very own podcast, BIC Talks. Bangalore International Centre is a platform for informed conversations, exchange of ideas, and a space for arts and culture. BIC Talks brings the essence of all that the physical space stands for and more to your doorstep.
What does it mean to be in a relationship in urban India in the last decade? Simran Mangharam is in conversation with Dipti Ramesh on this episode of BIC Talks. Do listen in.
Hi everyone and welcome to this podcast. My name is Dipti and I'm here with Simran.
Hi everybody. Hi Dipti.
So Simran is the founder of India's only dating community that has helped people connect in real life through events. It's called Floh. She's helped over 50,000 people navigate dating and modern relationships, and I had the opportunity to work closely with Simran at Floh, and we've had a number of conversations about love, romance, and everything in between. Simran is now working on a book about relationships and continues to coach, write columns for publications like the Hindustan Times and Indian Express. And today we're going to be talking about what it is to be in a relationship in today's India, what it is to be in modern relationship and modern love. Simran is going to share some of her insights with singles and with everyone in relationships so that you can also learn from all of the lessons that she's had with talking to over 50,000 people. So Simran, tell us a little bit about who you've been talking to and what these discussions have been like and why you're so invested in helping the urban, modern professional find love.
Well, I think the urban professionals, who is really the demographics that I talk to and we're going to talk about today, which might be a sliver of the larger society, but I think they're the ones that find it hardest to be in a relationship and even find a partner for themselves. It's really a confusing time because the way the society has evolved, it's been so fast. And, from being a society where partners were chosen for you and family background that was looked at, now, you're really allowed to be on your own. You have the agency to choose your own partner. And that is really confusing because that change has been so rapid. And unfortunately, there have been no role models for these young ladies and gentlemen to really know how to charter the path that they should be on. What do you have to say about that, Dipti? You're in that same urban professional demographic.
I think it is really difficult. You're right, there aren't that many role models. A lot of times we look to friends, colleagues, our parents, of course, to understand what relationships are supposed to look like. But that's changing every day. I know that there are some interesting shows on TV as well. Like I, for one, watched Indian matchmaking and heavily related.
Absolutely. And I think the reason why it's really tough for the urban professional demographics is because for other stratas of society, I don't know if you watched the Great Indian Marriage Bazaar by Ruchika Muchala. Yeah, and she has covered the journey of 3 young ladies. One is from a village and has just got a job as a constable, police constable in Bombay. The other is a middle-class young lady who from a Sindhi family, and she is absolutely fine with her parents finding the best match for her. She thinks they will do a better job than her, and she's absolutely fine with it. And then there's Ruchika, who has been born and raised in Singapore, has studied in the US as a documentary filmmaker, so she's independent. She's actually come to Bombay with her parents who are helping her in finding a match, and they're liberal and all of that, but she's having such a hard time that she goes to astrology as seeking an answer why things are not happening for her. She even goes to a professional photographer to get model photographs taken for various dating and matrimonial sites, so she's really knocking on each door because she wants to get married, but it's just so hard for her to find the right person for her. And in the documentary, both the police constable lady gets married and so does the Sindhi middle class young woman, because their ask is so simple. The police constable just wants to marry a man who's working and the one who will allow her to work too. There you go. The middle class is confident that her parents will do what's right for her. But Ruchika has a mind of her own. And also, it's such a level playing field for urban educated professionals now, Men are educated, so are women. Men are professionally qualified, so are women. Men are career oriented, women are career oriented. Both are financially independent. Both have very high exposure levels. And the most important one is that there's freedom to make choices. And I think that's where some of the confusion starts. And it makes things difficult.
Absolutely, because like the Great Indian Marriage Bazaar that came out in 2011 and Indian matchmaking is almost, 10 years later. And I think in both spaces, we really did see and empathize with, how challenging it is for a young single person to try and find a connection that's meaningful to them and that they wanted to, take forward and go into marriage. But on the other side, you're seeing loneliness as an epidemic and that, more and more young people are choosing to stay single and not to get into a relationship. And this is, of course, not to detract anything from those that are single by choice. It's definitely okay. And there are some people that celebrate it and really enjoy it. But on the other hand, there are definitely some that are looking for companionship, but it's not easy to come by. People definitely don't want to settle for something other than what they know would make them happy. So it's definitely a challenging time to be a single, Simran. Do you think more people are just saying, I'll get a pet?
A pet is always a great thing. But is it a very difficult time? Yes, it is. But then I also would say that, we're on the cusp of the golden era of relationships. We've always wanted that equality in a relationship, that I think any partnership should have. And we're finally on the cusp of getting it, right? Because there's so many things that both men and women are capable of and are doing, like we just spoke about. And, that power balance is finally getting balanced. It's not one-sided anymore. It is really becoming equal. And, there's so many role models in the society right now, young couples that I talk to, and I'm always giving examples of those couples to the people that I coach, because they don't know that those people exist. Because anytime someone who's single, they try to visualize themselves in a relationship or a marriage, they go back to their known role models, which are their parents. And most often their mothers were homemakers. And, I really know that with the 50,000 odd people that I spoke to at Floh, actually 94% of them, both men and women, their mothers were homemakers. So the default is for women especially, is they think that when they're in a relationship, they will be serving tea to their man who's reading the newspaper. They'll tell me, oh, I'm not like this tea serving type of girl, or this guy seems to be the guy who's like going to expect a cup of tea, in the morning when he gets up. So those things were there, but what we don't realize is they don't exist anymore. Even when you're living by yourself, you have staff. We all have money now, right? Especially in a double income home. There's staff, there's technology that aids you, Big Basket, Swiggy. And I don't think any of the parties are expecting the other to be in a certain way that, hey, you're going to be looking after the kitchen and I'm going to be doing this. I don't even think that expectation is there anymore. But because the single people don't have access to these couples, it becomes really hard for them to visualize. Dipti, have you ever met any modern couple that is on equal footing over here? Let me ask you that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think that traditional gender norms, gender rules are definitely bending, if not changing. And more couples today are taking mindful and active decisions that they're not going to have those kinds of expectations of their partner that their mothers may have had of their fathers or fathers may have had of their mothers. And I think you're right in that our family definitely plays a big role in how we envision our relationships. But we are definitely looking to change the rules in our favor and, of course, incorporate technology and just a more modern outlook and a more equal and equitable outlook into how we plan our relationships.
If I give you some real life examples, in our mommy group and for my daughter, the only guy is like the most popular person. Like, we love him because his wife is doing better in her career. And so he chose to take a step back. He works from home. So we actually really coordinate with him for play dates. And he's the one who shows up at birthday parties. And I mean, I can't tell you like how many women tell him like, hey, come meet my husband. I want to tell him about you, So
I know, but I think it's still called the mommies group though, Simran. Maybe you got to change that.
We call it the goat herd group. And even in like my family, I mean, I actually hate grocery shopping. So my husband Siddharth, he's like the grocery shopper of our house, and I have no idea what's going on. And then there's another friend of mine who actually just has never cooked in her life, and her husband is the guy who puts the food on the table literally by cooking it. So there are just so many examples around us of people playing to each other's strengths, just like that they would in an organization. There are many households where the women are actually the financial planners of the family, and maybe the guy is taking care of all the medical needs of the family because she doesn't like going to a hospital. So all of that is actually happening, and I think it's beautiful. I think it really lets us be who we are, right? And makes life so easy, right? If that was happening.
I think redefining some of these gender roles, it's such great news to hear. And I'm so glad that from your insights, that's what you're seeing, because it's a great trend. And I know that right now it's still a niche. It's specific to this demographic. But it's nice to know that, despite having had the primary reference of our parents and relationships, that now people really are redefining the way that they look at things. And I'm sure that the pandemic has had some kind of impact on that, with people working from home more and with staff not becoming available any longer, with people having to pitch in more at home. Have you seen any impact of the pandemic on these kinds of relationship roles?
I think the pandemic has been great for relationships because I think both men and women really see the lives of each other as they are, right? Everybody's working from home. So the man knows that the woman is equally stressed or equally pulled to different directions in work, or is dedicating X amount of time at work. It's so visible, right? Because when you are in offices, you have no idea what's going on in each other's life, right? Now your wife is stressed about something that her boss said, or like something that happened at work. Now she knows a similar thing is happening with him. So there's a lot of empathy that is also coming through, because you're realizing what reality is in your professional lives. And then, of course, you also see how things play out at work and how you're juggling all these balls and how everyone is stepping up to help without even like the other one asking for it. In fact, there was an article in the BBC that I read where they quoted a research from CMIE, the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. And they said that Indian men before pandemic was spending about 29 minutes in doing household chores versus 4 hours that the women were spending. And now they're spending 1.5 hours doing home chores, which is an hour more than they were doing before, right? And the women are spending about the same or a little less. So I think that really goes to show that the pandemic in a way has brought that empathy and awareness and willingness to step up in us. So in that sense, I think it's helped couples a lot.
And it's so nice to, be able to do chores together or plan family meals together. And I can only imagine that must be an enriching experience for each of the individuals in the relationship as well, to be able to make decisions together, I think must be so enriching. And I'm sure that both men and women, from what you've seen as well, that they bring something different to the table, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of understand your partner's individual strengths and, areas of improvement or weaknesses a lot more in depth as well.
I would like you to actually share share the example that you shared with me about your friends when we were having a discussion about this podcast, because, that is the collaboration you need. And I would love for you to share that example.
So I have these friends, Soumya and Arjun, and they're such fantastic people. So she is a super extrovert. Her ideal Saturday night would be to go out with a bunch of us, friends, and like maybe we would go out dancing or we would go out to a movie. But it's definitely like a very, socially kind of engaging activity. And his is quite the opposite. He loves to stay at home, read a book, get some hot chocolate. That's his Saturday night. But like, for example, when it comes to situations where it would be beneficial for him to be more social. So say, for example, a dinner with his boss or his work colleagues, he's always mindful to take her along, and try and use her skills to his advantage at work. And, they work as a unit, and it's wonderful to see them as a couple really leverage each other's skills to their overall kind of benefit. And it's similar with her whenever she has to make an important decision in her life, or she's having trouble with a client and she needs some advice on how to navigate a difficult situation. And she needs to take a step back and really assess or think deeply about a particular situation. She always goes to him to bounce off various situations and scenarios to see how she can better herself and better the outcome of that situation. So I think that, they are very starkly different, but it's so nice to see that as individuals, they're able to kind of balance the best of each other for their relationship. And I think we're seeing more of this, even being portrayed in our mainstream media.
I mean, I love the Swiggy ad where the husband is washing the dishes and his wife is sitting on the dining table and scrolling through her phone to see what are the offers on Swiggy. I love that ad. And the other ad that I really love is the Licious ad where the man is cooking a beautiful piece of fish and his mother-in-law and his wife are sitting on the dining table like chatting and doing some misa for him, I mean, that's so beautiful. And it really shows where we are going as a society, right? I mean, it's coming in your mainstream ads now, and I think that's fantastic.
So, Simran, what are some of the insights that you think you've seen that you'd really like to share with single people? What are some of the takeaways that you think everyone listening with us today should know?
Let me split it into two parts, for singles and for people in relationships. So let me start with single people. I coach so many of them, and a theme that I think runs through is people are disheartened, right? Especially during pandemic. And what my insight is for them is things have changed in terms of how relationships exist in this country now. And look to that to find inspiration and feel good, because people are more open-minded. You have the agency to choose your partner. I mean, how big is that for our country, right? So be aware that that change has happened. The second insight is, I would say that don't look at the tangible checklist that singles make: height, looks, career, should be living in this place. And
I feel like that was the first thing my mom told me. She was just like, what is your list, beta? Like, what do you want if we're going to find you a husband?
You should have a list, but that list or that sentence should be about the kind of attitude that you're seeking in your partner. And when I say attitude, I mean, are you looking for patience? Are you looking for generosity? Are you looking for compassion? Are you looking for solution-oriented person like you are? And write it down how you want to be treated as an individual in this relationship, because you do want to be treated as an individual. You need that space. You need to evolve. And that individuality is really important even in a relationship. It keeps things very interesting. Respect. You want to be treated with respect. And I mean, it's vice versa, right? Kindness. So what is it that visualize that? Because that is what will make a strong relationship. Because once you're in love with someone and once that bond is so strong, believe me, you don't remember what that person is looking like. I mean, that's not what you look at when you get up in the morning, It's really how they make you feel. So that's another insight. And then, the other one is that each relationship should have its own rules. And that relationship is your relationship. So whatever you both want, of course, both of you should want it, by the way. Like, for example, you might decide that you want to be child free. That's absolutely fine if that's what both of you want. You might decide that you don't want to get married and you want to just live together. That's fine too, as long as both of you want it, because you're the ones who are going to live your life on a daily basis. So make your own rules. That are like my key insights, to let single people know that, hey, this can be a good thing, and not all is bad. In fact, it's going to be great.
I think that's great advice, especially right now. It sounds so hopeful because I know a lot of single people today are really concerned because, with the pandemic and with social distancing, we all spent a lot of time not really being able to go outside or meet new people. So it's nice to hear that even though it is such a difficult moment in the history of our world, that it is actually still, there is a bright side. People are being open-minded and we do have the agency to kind of choose who we want to be with. And there is a lot more flexibility for us today than there was, even 10 years ago. So it's nice to be reminded of the bright side of things, even when it seems a little bit bleak. And what about for people in relationships, Simran?
My insights over there are that, you have to communicate. Even if you think that something seems trivial or silly to mention to your partner at an intellectual level, if something is bothering you, you must communicate that. Because relationships are about feelings and emotions, and sometimes they're impractical, and that's fine. I mean, it's absolutely okay. It's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of wanting to be with the person. So communicate whatever you're feeling. It's really important, and continue that communication. Of course, the other point is that remember that you're on the same team and you always will be. And if your goal is to keep that relationship, then, have the collaborative approach like your friends do. I mean, it really is such a great thing and keeps things also very cohesive. The last one is very similar to the singles insight, that make your own rules and change them whenever you want to, because, they're your rules and you absolutely can. So work with that, because we are two different people, right? And we might have different approaches. And if we find something that works for both people, and an example I'll give over here is, there are couples who perhaps don't like each other's friends. And you don't want to give up on a friend that your spouse doesn't like because they don't like them. So you can decide that, hey, when I'm meeting this friend, you don't have to come along. I will go alone for that party. And the spouse has to be fine with that because he or she doesn't want to go. So those are the kind of rules I'm talking about, which are really in your life, and you need to juggle around them, but yet give each other the space. And so that's what I'm talking about over here.
That makes so much sense to me. And I think for me, in summary, like the biggest takeaway and the most important thing to remember is that each relationship is unique. And so you're right, we should be making our own rules, single or in a relationship, and define like ultimately what works best for you and also for your partner. Simran, do you have anything else that or like a last thought that you want to leave us with, a takeaway to reflect on regardless of our relationship status?
We live in this age where it's so easy to compare, right, with all the social media access that we have. But the reality is that no two couples are the same. So stay away from comparisons or benchmarks defined by others. The couple goals have to be your own goals, because you can't look at the Facebook or Instagram feed stating celebrity couple goals and say, oh, So stay away from
leave the hashtags on the internet.
Yeah. So that's something to reflect on in these times.
Yeah, and I'm sure that each story is unique and each one is beautiful in and of itself. And so however you find your partner, however you build your relationship, that becomes goals to you, right? Like you build something that you can be really proud of and that you can take joy in. So that's such a lovely thought, Simran. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on that. I'm sure that there would be a lot of people that, after this would want to connect with you and maybe talk a little bit more about relationships. I know you do one-on-one coaching. So could you tell us what's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. The best way to reach out to me is via email, and my email ID is simran@floh.in.
I'm sure that there would be a bunch of people who would want to email you. For those of you listening, you can also read Simran's articles in the sex and relationship section of the Hindustan Times. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me and with all of us. Simran, this was so fun. I definitely feel a lot more comfortable thinking about relationships.
Thank you, Dipti. I really enjoyed this too. It's like us having a conversation in our living room. I love it. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, BIC. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening in till the end. Please share this episode with a friend on social media, WhatsApp, or anywhere else. It would mean the world to us. And in case you're listening via iTunes or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and a review. Subscribe to BIC Talks on email or your favorite podcast app and don't miss out on future episodes. This episode of BIC Talks has Gaurav Krishna as our sound engineer, with support from S. Sarvanaraj and Lekha Naidu. And the accompanying episode artwork was made by Chandni Venkataraman.
Thank you for listening to this episode of BIC Talks. This podcast can be accessed on our website, bangaloreinternationalcentre.org, as well as on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in for new episodes every week, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages to stay informed on our latest updates.